In this session, and what I wanted to look at, but looking at Office 365 and Teams within Glow. And again, it's really important to look at it within Glow because it works a wee bit differently sometimes from the kind of vanilla version that you might get in a wider either corporate or if schools have their own accounts for that and within local authorities. So it can be a wee bit different. And the real key to this is really looking at the flipped online learning. So I think in some ways it's been good. I think there's been a bit of clarity around what's expected and the fact that we're no longer talking about terms like remote, blended and mixed delivery and things. It's very clear that it is going to be online learning for the learners who can access that, and hopefully that is most learners now with the government funding that was put in. So to provide devices and broadband, and whether that's trickled down or not, that's not the point of this session. So but yeah, the key part I think is that we're quite clear about it. It is online. Everybody's in roughly the same boat of accessing school remotely, and that might at least streamline some of the decisions you have to make about not having some learners in class and some learners out of class, or being in the class at some of the time and being out of the class at different times. So I guess it gives us an opportunity to really focus on what that online learning and teaching is going to look like. There will be considerations about what your expectations and your standards are. I guess as ever, standards will always remain high, and we'll expect a lot from ourselves and from our learners. But I think about the expectations, and I'm hoping that those are kept realistic, but those will come from a variety of sources, from your school management, your local authority, and again the learners and their families. So I guess what I'd like to try and do today is get across a picture of how we can keep that realistic, how we can manage those expectations, limit some of the workload. Hopefully we can streamline some of that and make it a wee bit easier for yourself, and really just to come up with a model of what this online learning and teaching could look like. So again, I don't have all the answers. It's just an example that I've come up with, and hopefully it proves useful. I guess then that regardless of what the platform or the method of delivery, what we're always looking at is those whys are always the same, coming straight from the Hagios there, that it's about learning and engagement, the quality of teaching, and the use of assessment, and then the planning, tracking and monitoring. It all goes without saying. But again, there's sometimes maybe, I know there are certainly people who would like to paint the picture that when technology becomes involved in education, perhaps because that's their role, is that it has to change and look very different. But there are lots and lots, again, all educators here, and you know what good quality learning and teaching looks like. So it's really about trying to help facilitate that online. You know the maths, you know the literacy and the other critical areas, and it's hopefully I'm just here to help you accommodate that online. So that's really the point of the session. What I would say again is that about the how, being realistic, treat this like any professional inquiry. Pick a thing, a small change, implement it in your classroom, reflect on it and modify it as you go forward. I'm hopefully going to cover lots of things in this session. I have made it an hour and a half rather than an hour, but again, if you have to dip out after half an hour or an hour, that's fine. You missed the good bits, but that's understandable. It is a wee bit longer just to give me time to go through it and answer any questions at the end as well. So I'll give wee points to ask questions during as we go. If I don't get to those, then we can ask questions at the end as well. But keep that in mind. I'm going to cover lots of ideas. I'm obviously confident we're using digital technologies, so my pace might be a wee bit quicker. You might think I'm throwing lots of ideas out there. Pick one that you think you can implement for Monday and try it. Pick one, try it, and get good at that before you're trying to go through the whole range of options there. So for me, I guess I would be considering after any extended break, certainly after Christmas, we're off for a number of weeks, my learners are coming back, I would be going over my classroom routines again, lining up at the door, going from room to room, how they move through the schools, single file, am I expecting them to be silent the whole time, or is that a level of talking aloud, whatever. Who hands out jotters, where do jotters get handed in, how long they can expect between handing something in and getting the feedback on it, So I would go over all that again with my learners every time they come back from it. Some classes I've had, you've got to go over it every Monday morning. You've got to remind them of the standards and expectations. And I think this is the exact same. If anything, it's maybe even a wee bit more. It's like going back in August to a new classroom. Not a new class, your learners I'm sure will be very much the same, but it's almost like you're going back to a new classroom. Now that will depend on how much online learning you were doing before the winter break, but coming back after Christmas here, I'm thinking it's almost like getting moved to a new room in a new building in a new locality. It's like starting in a whole new school. You've maybe taken the learners with you, but you're in a completely new place. You're got to try and work out what cupboards the resources are in, where are the textbooks, where's the jotters, how do you get pencils off the office staff if there's any. You're effectively in that boat here, depending again, as I say, on how much online learning you were delivering before Christmas. But if you were in the classroom regularly before and you haven't had an extended isolation period or anything, then you are perhaps coming at this a wee bit fresher, or maybe it's been a while since you were in the last lockdown or that. So for me, there's three key areas here. There's the two questions on the screen that aren't in italics, and then the ones in italic from how do I set learning activities to feedback. I will cover as a kind of practical demo. The first wee part just about setting those standards about how learners access it. I'll give you a wee bit of information, and then at the end again a wee bit of information about how we can perhaps support them, or hopefully I'll cover the getting stuck bit as we go. But it's maybe worth considering it a wee bit as coming back in August, as I say. I'm just going to go back to my chat a wee second and just make sure somebody's got a microphone on. I can hear some echo. I'm just going to make sure that all the microphones are off. So we're up to 50 people, that's grand. I hate to say this again, if you've been at other webinars, but because of people's practice, we are having to keep reiterating, only learners should know their Glow login details. The teacher shouldn't be able to log in as a pupil. You shouldn't know their password. You'll know their username, but know their password. And adults at home, their family members, their pals, nobody else should know their Glow login details. And we'll have to keep saying that because we keep getting, the Glow team keep getting examples where schools and teachers are sharing Glow login details with families. It's there for the pupils. Glow is designed only to keep it as safe and secure as possible for the learners. Only learners and educators should be on it. That means everybody accessing Glow has had a PVG check. That should be the case, which means that we should know who is on that system. And as soon as you give an adult, and it's not a nice thought to think about, but as soon as you give an adult access to Glow, you're giving them access, unfiltered access to those learners. And again, you wouldn't be encouraging any learners in your class to hand their mobile phone number out to adults, whether they know them or not. So I wouldn't be encouraging adults to be able to access Glow. I hope that makes sense why that's something we keep reminding. If you do need to communicate with adults, and I think it is really important that we communicate with families and not just learners here, then think about your other systems that you use for communicating with adults. So whether that's the school Twitter and you want to put up that Primary 6 have got some new learning, you've got a class Twitter, or you're using Glow blogs, or whatever format you use to communicate with parents, it's maybe worth sharing some information with parents and adults and carers along with the learners, so that what is always going to happen with lots of reports of that, I spoke to lots of people who shared that last time, that they thought they covered the basis for online learning, but then when the learners get stuck, there's parts where adults get confused about what has been asked of learners. So I think definitely this time around it's worth considering that as part of your planning and prep time, and if that means that there's a wee bit less learning tasks or activities for the learners because you've had to put a wee bit extra prep in to support the adults, I think that every adult will appreciate that if you've got a video explaining how to do place value with 2-digit numbers, that there's a part of that that's either that video is enough for the adults and for the learner to understand, and I think videos for flipped learning are perfect, so that the adult can watch what you're doing and say, right, now I know how to support my learner with this, my child, because otherwise you might be asking them to do tens and ones for place value, but the adults used to calling it tens and units, and that's causing havoc at home. If you put the video or a link to, for example, in the session I'll show you today, the Numeracy Maths Team's professional learning resource paper at Ed Scott, then you could put a link to documents like that adults can use to support the learning at home. So I think you might want to share things like that, but it's got to be separate from Teams. You cannot be sharing details and information for adults using the Glow platform. What I did like was I've shared a link to a tweet here. I think if I'm right, it's Hillview in East Renfrewshire. Hope I've got that school right, but I've shared a tweet there. You can follow the link once I share the slides at the end of the session. And what they've done is they've set up a form in their school so that if a learner doesn't have their Glow password, or they've forgotten it, or they can't access it, then they can use that form to contact their teacher and ask the teacher to reset it remotely. Now again, if I was in my class, I would set the class password and make it that the learners have to reset their password when they log in. That might be difficult to do remotely, and if you set a class password, there's a risk that somebody else could access with that. So I thought that forms was a really good way of getting around that. Guidance and passwords before I move on. 3 random words, that's the national guidance. Glow asks for a wee bit more. It asks for uppercase, lowercase, special characters, numbers. That's fine, that's a wee bit added insurance, but our practice, if we're teaching cyber resilience and internet safety to our learners, it's always about 3 random words. That's what a password should contain. And for young learners, that might be big, blue, 10, 3 short words that are a wee bit easier. And again, I always like the idea in the nursery class. You quite often saw it in primary 1 in the infants. They've maybe got a wee picture on their coat peg in the classroom. So I'm the green welly, and I remember where I put my jacket, not because I can read my name, but I can tell the green welly. So maybe it's about coming up with something like that to help support learners. So love to see any ideas about supporting learners with passwords. That'd be great to see. Just a wee quick reminder there, I suppose the main part here is that the recognise, react and recover is really important about cyber resilience, but I think at the moment as well worth having a consideration about. You're probably teaching your numeracy, your literacy and other areas. Definitely worth covering the digital literacy E&O about internet safety and cyber resilience there, but that internet safety message there, safe, smart and kind, ties in really well with health and well-being. But again, that's the sort of thing I think a lot of learners and a lot of adults at home would be really keen to have some guidance on, and to support the learners with staying safe, smart and kind, because they're spending so much of their time, like all of us, online at the moment, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to really support the development with internet safety there. Any advice and guidance, DigiLearn Scott's our one-stop shop there, and worth checking in there for different bits. The webinars section here is where we'll post the slides and the video, the recording of this once it's been rendered. They'll be shared in there. You can do catch up on all our webinars that we've run, and the Learning Pass will give you information on anything Office 365 and Teams. So if you want to know how to make a form, there's a guide in there. It shows you there's a thing link image, an interactive image, there's YouTube videos, there's wee short bite-sized ones, there's big long webinars, there's anything you want in there. And again, if you are using digital or online learning effectively, or it might just be you're happy with an activity that you've made, it might be groundbreaking, it might just be something that you're really keen that you've developed and think, if I can do it, anyone can do it. That's a great message to share. Share it with us at Your Stories, Your Community on DigiLearn Scott. And again, you can read other people's stories under sharing practice. So there's over 100 there now. You can read how other people have used online learning. So on to the good bit then. That's all the kind of spiel out the way. I also shared on Tuesday a demo timetable. I'll just show you that very quickly. Just my thoughts, what I would do if I was in a primary classroom again. I would probably have the flipped learning, and these times are suggested because I get not every learner can access between 9:30 and 10, but there will be some families who want maybe some guidance on a bit of routine, a bit of schedule to the day, but not everybody can do that. So worth thinking about how you deliver this and what the expectations you outline are. I would have some, I've just said revision there for starting off, a wee bit of consolidation. I'd want to make sure my learners were confident with the platform, with Teams and Office 365 and any apps like OneNote that I'm using. I'd want them to be confident in that before throwing some new maths concept. Here's forms for the first time, here's percentages for the first time. I think that's quite, that could be quite challenging, quite demanding on learners. So I just thought I would start this week, like most Januaries, a bit of consolidation, and I would show them the new apps and platforms and how to hand the learning in and how to get it and how to get feedback, where to find the videos, etc. I'd do that sort of learning this week and have a bit of consolidation on my literacy and my numeracy probably. Again, just my ideas, just examples. But I would start with a flipped task, so something independent they can go and get on with. I'd provide them with all the materials and resources they need. I'd then have a check-in time, and I would kind of try and guarantee that. And again, different times and different lengths, whatever suits you and your learners. You might want to have one in the morning, one in the evening. I've kept it within 9 till 3. So I don't expect them to go away and say that George said we have to put our videos on at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. So that's up to you and whatever you think is realistic and necessary for your learners. But I would suggest having that check-in time, and I maybe wouldn't go over this maths. So if this was Monday's maths, I would maybe recap Monday's maths on Tuesday, so that if my learner didn't get it done between 9 and 10:30, if they're doing it at 8 o'clock at night, which hopefully they're not having to, but if they did have to do it later, I would check in on Tuesday about Monday's math. Just again, my practice there. But what I would do is I would stick the camera on between 10:30 and 11. I'd make my families and my learners aware of that. And I would be saying, I'm there for a chat, whether it's health and wellbeing, or if you want to recap some of the learning, you didn't understand something about place value, I can do a wee live input on that and just help you with that like I would in the class. But even if they want to just put the video on and have a chat with you, or even a couple of their pals, you want to just let your class have playtime effectively, and you're there to just supervise that, I think that's what I would be using my video for in the first place. Then having a wee literacy task. And again, I'm not going from 11 to 12:30 here. Again, have that wee bit of break in there, that they don't have to be at a screen, they don't have to be doing learning. They can have a wee bit of downtime in the day. Then I would be looking at literacy in the afternoon, using some online resources, and again, a wee bit of flipped, maybe a form to get the assessment for that. And again, a wee check-in in the afternoon, around about lunchtime, where I'm saying again, I'm going to be at my computer. If you want to be at your computer, I'll be there. If you want to come on and tell me about holidays, your new dog, your hamster, whatever it is, if you want to come on and have a chat, or you, now again, if it's a health and well, if it's like a concern or any safeguarding, then obviously follow your school and your local authority's procedures. If a child says, I'm struggling, I'm having issues, or I've got a concern or a worry, I would be saying, right, we'll arrange for a chat with another adult on. I wouldn't be wanting to have that one-to-one chat or anything with a learner on Teams. That's my thoughts on that. That's how I would want to handle that. I'd be, again, going back to the child safety, the safeguarding for my school, my local authority. I'd be making sure that whatever I do online is in line with that practice. But again, if a learner wants to go and say, oh, I feel a wee bit down today, or I've kind of finished my maths, I'm looking for something else, they can come on and have that chat. And then I thought the afternoon would be another subject area, maybe a wee mini topic. You want to do a wee science block where they do a bit of science each afternoon. Then next week maybe they're going to do a wee bit of art in the afternoons. However you want to split that up. Again, just suggestions about how I might break up my day. I've also put format 2, which is the inverse of that, just to try and cover all bases, where maybe you want to do a live lesson and show them the maths in the morning and then give them an independent task to go away and do. The risk with that is always, I know in my class, you can ask them all the questions you like to ensure that they understand it, and you think, great, they definitely know it, they've answered all my questions, I am confident they know what to do, and the second they go away independently, the hand goes up, they're stuck. So you could put in the best bit of prepared video live lessons before they go to the task, but once they go to the task, hand is up, I'm stuck, I forgot what to do. So that's why I always think the video after the learning is more effective. And also about equity, if I miss that, if I'm unable to make 9:30 to 10 for that live lesson, for you explaining the new concept, because my mum or my dad or my granny or whoever it is using the laptop for work, or my wee brother's got their live learning time and at the same time, and all those clashes, then I'm at a disadvantage. So I think if you prepare the learning to be delivered independently, and then you're then able to pick up with them and discuss that at the next stage, I think that's probably more effective. But I've painted that picture anyway. 2 different ways of doing it. Independent learning, then a bit of live video, or live video, then a bit of independent learning. There's certainly no need for MD to do live video if you're not able to or not comfortable. Your school or local authority aren't encouraging or promoting it, that is fine. It's just, again, a suggestion there. So again, I've said I cover, in those wee example ones, numeracy, literacy, health and wellbeing. Those are the 3 responsibilities of all. Everybody's got to teach those 3, and other curricular areas, we've got to teach them as well. But the 3, numeracy, literacy and health and wellbeing, responsibility of all, they're expected to be taught regularly. And again, going with my own experience, I can only imagine my head teacher would be saying, make sure you've got your numeracy and literacy, and then the other areas. So just that's what some people have said as well they might expect. So again, learning, teaching, assessment, it seemed dead obvious. Make sure that you know what you want to teach, you've got your E's and O's ready and things, and you're being led by the E's and O's. Not, I saw a brilliant lesson, somebody had a great idea, a kind of Netflix thing on Twitter or something, looked brilliant, I'm going to do that. Does it meet the E's and O's? Does it meet your learner's needs? and I would always be coming back to that. And as well, there's a part where you might feel, oh, I want to do measurement. We were doing measuring maths, that's what I planned, and I was going to get them to go with the trundle wheels, and all of a sudden that activity isn't viable, and there isn't really, there are some other alternative measure activities you can do. Google Maps is great. You can use Google Maps to measure area and distances and things. Super activity to do, a good replacement for that. Again, if your learner's got an iPad at home, they can use Apple Measure with augmented reality, but again, that's dependent on them having a device that does that. So Measure might not be the one that you want to teach. It might not fit to online quite so easily. You might find when you're trying to make some lessons or prepare the video or the materials and going, this is actually a wee bit clunky, it doesn't work, then don't make that the lesson. Do something different. It sounds dead obvious, but again, I've spoken to some teachers, I said, I keep trying to do this, it doesn't really work as a lesson online. Maybe that's not an online lesson. So, but what will hopefully give you some alternatives for literacy and numeracy that you can do online. For me, flipped learning is the way to go. I've explained that already. And again, I would try to put the focus, I always think, be kind to yourself, get the learner to do the thinking, get them to do the legwork. You could come up with, there's some great examples for the numeracy and maths team here, and I'm sure they're not the first ones to invent it, but they've shared a great example with me where you've got the 4 sectors on the screen, you put a calculation in the middle and you say, show me it with concrete materials, show me it pictorially, and show me it with 2 different examples of working, for example. So you could ask one question of the learner and you can ask them, what do they notice, what do they wonder next, and can you think of a number that's similar to that, or if you've got a calculation like 15 plus 28, can you make a calculation similar to that? Can you come up with 2 random numbers on 100 square or with dice or whatever and make your own calculation? As much as you can, try and have those open-ended things. You know, for literacy tasks, why don't you try and write an alternative ending to this story that you use for comprehension, something that gets them to do the work, that you don't have to make a worksheet and a resource and you know, all those extra bits. You know, you could make a worksheet with 30 questions on it, or you could make, you know, I'm going to show you an example with 1 question on it and asking the learner to do it 4 or 5 different ways. So you only maybe need to ask 5 questions, but they're going to come up with the questions, they're going to do the higher order thinking, and that's what's, you know, it's hopefully going to streamline some of your workload, but it's really going to engage, it's going to be really active learning for the learners. So that's my thinking here. And in order to do that, what I'm going to do is just show you some live demonstration just now of how I would be using assignments to set the tasks, making sure I'm always going back to my E's and O's and my success criteria and things. And again, sound dead obvious, but making those instructions as clear as possible for you, for the learner, and for their family, their adults that are supporting them at home. Is it explicitly clear about the process you want them to do? If you want them to use concrete materials, have you explained clear enough for the adult who wasn't in your class to get that lesson, who may have not done any numeracy and maths or adding up coins for a number of years? They may have not had to do that thing, or they might have a support need at home. They might have a dyslexic adult who you're asking them, just read this and do those questions, but that might be difficult for an adult to support with. So thinking about how you can support the adults to support the learner, because they are effectively going to be the, if you were lucky enough to have a teaching assistant in the classroom, I suppose it's maybe about thinking about the adults a wee bit like a teaching assistant. When the learner gets stuck, the hand goes up, that's the other adult in the room that's going to be able to help you, hopefully, but you're going to have to help them. That's the way I thought about it. And again, prepare and create everything that you can, and include them in the assignment. Put everything in the same place, and that's why I'm going to talk about assignments. Everything in the same place, because your learners should be able to go there and get it. They don't have to search or hunt for, or go to YouTube and find the video that you've suggested. You should be giving them the link to the video. And again, accessibility tools. Here's the Microsoft ones for today. Immersive Reader, we've got videos all about that, Dictate and Lens, some demonstrations showing how those tools work. Immersive Reader in particular, it's going to read the text on the screen. That's huge. It's all the way through the Teams platform in Office 365 now. And again, they can use Dictate to write their text. They can speak to the computer and it'll type for them. Is that what your learner needs to get the task done? And if that is, if you've got a learner that's dyslexic perhaps, and you want them to do a bit of writing, then maybe you want them to do it on Word instead of a PowerPoint, because with Word they can use Dictate, unless I've added that now. I know my colleague Don's joined us. If they've added, they always do that, they always add tools when you haven't checked it for a couple of days. But unless they've added dictate to PowerPoint, which I don't think they have yet, then I would want my learner using Word, because they can talk and type with their voice rather than having to use the keys, and that might be what they need to access that at home. So I'm going to jump into an example team.